Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Pianist Academy and to the September 14th Q&A live stream. It's good to see you here. Drop your name in the chat and where you're from, and you can always ask your questions there. It's the best place to submit any questions. So we've got a handful of people here already today, so hello. Let me know who you are so we can say hi. And this is so much better. Man, 2 weeks ago, if you were here 2 weeks ago, we had major kind of internet problems. So looks like everything is working great this time, and that is awesome. So we're going to have a great session today. So I have actually got a question for you. We're going to kind of turn this around a little bit today. I have a question for you, for the live viewers and for people that watch this back later on. What is your favorite piano that you've ever played on? Doesn't have to necessarily be the most expensive, but what's the favorite piano? Maybe it's the one that you have at home. Maybe it's, I don't know, who knows? Tell us a little story. Let us know what the make is, maybe how big it was, why you thought it was so much fun. And if you're watching this back later, let us know in the comments. That would be great. Hey, Rodrigo. Awesome. Thanks for jumping in the chat. And from Germany, hello. I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado in the USA. What time is it over in Germany? It must be, gosh, early evening, mid-evening, like 6, 7 p.m., something like that. So those of you that are here, let's see, 1,800 hours would be 6 p.m. So, yeah, we in the U.S., we have 12 and 12. You probably know that. So I have to do a little bit of calculation to figure out how far into the day 1,800 hours is. But thanks. That's awesome. I hope you've had dinner, Rodrigo. Hey, Luis. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us again. So as you pop in, if you have a particular question, let us know in the chat. And also let us know about your favorite piano to play. And I'll go first and I'll tell a little bit of that story here. Hey, Haydar. Awesome. 7 p.m. in Baghdad. Awesome. And great to see you again. Awesome. I think, was it 2 weeks? 2 weeks or 4 weeks ago, I saw you pop in the chat. So great to see you again. Of course, I love the piano that I have here. It's great. But my favorite piano ever to play was probably when I was studying at Arizona State University, we had a Hamburg Steinway D, and that was in our main concert hall. So that was a 9-footer, not the typical Steinway built in New York City, but built in Hamburg, Germany. And that piano was just incredible to play on. And I got to play on it a number of times. I don't know, maybe a few dozen times during my time studying there. So it was just super awesome instrument to play, and it was in a beautiful concert hall. I think my favorite 9-foot pianos that I've gotten to play have always been Hamburg Steinways. There was one there. There was one actually in New York City that I got to play. There was one in Kansas that was a Hamburg Steinway that was really just incredible. So I would say that would be mine. Let me know what yours is. I see Rodrigo chimed in. Steinway that your teacher has. How big is the piano? How big is the piano? Do you know? Is it like a 7-footer? A lot of teachers have between a 6 and a 7-foot piano. Some, if they're very lucky, they have a 9-footer at home, but there aren't a whole lot of homes that can fit a 9-foot piano. My own teacher this is another interesting story since we're talking about pianos in general. My main teacher had a Steinway from the 1890s. And it had been rebuilt, and it was taken care of really nicely. But it was, that was a really nice instrument, and it was actually quite different from how modern Steinways feel. So that was cool, and that was what was in his house. And then in his office, he had a couple Steinway Bs. So, yeah, Rodrigo, let's see, 1.5 meters long, so maybe 5 feet. 5 feet or so, something like that. But very nice. It's probably like a Model L or an O. And those can be really nice pianos. I've played a few of those that are incredibly just like warm and rich and just a lovely tone, right? Haydar says a Donner. Nice. Awesome. There were some really, really nice digital pianos these days. Really, really awesome. And they could feel amazing. Like so close to what a super expensive acoustic grand piano feels like. So yeah. There's electric pianos can be really, really amazing to play on and to practice on. Hey, Jose, great to see you. Steinway for sure. At the Steinway showroom. Awesome. I got to perform in the Steinway showroom. I don't remember. Is that on like 44th or something? Steinway Hall. There's like this big bay window that looks out onto the street. And they always keep one of their 9-footers there, and they set up chairs. It's like in the front lobby of Steinway Hall. And they set up chairs there. And I think this whole building, this whole facility is closed down, actually. So this was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. But that was maybe one of the strangest performances I've ever given, because there was an audience to my right, like there usually is at the piano. The audience is to the right. And then there were these windows that looked right out onto the streets of New York to my left. Like you could reach out and touch the window, and the people outside could be standing like an arm's length away. That was very strange, because usually you're not used to having people that close to you while you're performing. But that was a lot of fun, and it's a great memory. So, hey, what questions do we have today? Let me know. And I mean, if I don't see something pop in the next minute or so, I will dive into just talking about some stuff that I have planned. But in the meantime, if you've got something, let me know. It could be about a piece of music. It could be about technique. It could be about music technology. It could be about theory. You tell me. I'm here. And if you don't have a question, what are you drinking? If it's the morning, like it is for me, I've got a cup of black coffee. And if it's the evening, well, you have a lot of options. So let us know. I'll give you a little bit of, let's have a little bit of just thinking music. Let me see if I can play this. You're a Jeopardy fan. I don't even know if that show is broadcast in other countries or if it's only in the US, but Haydar says he's almost there with his Moonlight Sonata first movement. You'll share it once you're finished. Awesome. Actually, I wanted to mention that since you bring that up. I would love to do another masterclass video where we have video submissions and things like that. So Haydar, if you'll submit that, and yeah, if you're okay with me sharing it and commenting on it live, then awesome. Just send that email over. I'll super look forward to hearing the first movement of the Moonlight Sonata. That's great. Haydar, have you started working with the sheet music for it? Because last time we talked, you were mainly using the Synthesia, like drop-down stuff to learn from. So how has that been going? Let me know. Rodrigo asks, what would you recommend as preparation for your first public performance of an advanced beginner player? So that's a great question, Rodrigo. Rodrigo, what has your experience been with doing things in public? Like, have you ever done public speaking before? Have you ever done, let's see, what else have you done? And let me know like how long it's been. Is it something you do regularly for work? Is it something that you haven't done since, for a long time, 10, 20, 30 years, maybe more? Because that can have a little bit of an impact on what I'll say. Hey, Miscellaneous. Oh, you're also in Germany. Awesome. That's great. I'll have to play some Beethoven for you guys. Okay, so Rodrigo says, public speaking a lot and amateur tennis competitions. That's it. So if you get nervous when you do your public speaking, and if you, like a lot of people like to use note cards and things like that to glance at and have reminders. And if you get to perform with sheet music, then that's great. That's great because we can always check back and check in with it. So if you find that in public speaking you get nervous or you have a little bit of that anxiety going on, then it's probably also going to happen when you play. And that's fine. That's something that we pretty much, I think every human being goes through something like that. So that's totally fine. I would suggest that give yourself multiple opportunities to run through whatever you're going to perform for a couple people that are important to you live. like in the same room. So especially if you know somebody that's going to make you nervous or going to help simulate, oh, wow, 4 kilometers from your place, Rodrigo. That's very cool. So yeah, if you have somebody, whether that's like a spouse or a great friend, a parent, somebody that's going to make you super as nervous as you would when you get up and give your first performance, go to that person and ask them to listen to you play. And then kind of simulate what it's going to be like. You can even, you can walk up to the piano that you're going to play, take a bow if you have to do that in this performance that you have coming up. Simulate everything. Walking to the instrument, bowing, sitting down, making sure the bench is in the right place, all the things you need to go through, and then play it. And when you're done, finish the whole routine, get up, bow for the person or two that you're playing for, walk off, because those are, it's ironic, but we think about so much about playing, and there's this other component. And if the first time we do that is when we actually walk out in front of people, sometimes the act of walking and bowing can be just as nerve-wracking as playing. So if we can get that easy thing out of the way and out of our brain and get it practiced too, that's going to help a lot. Then reflect on how you did in the performance for the person and ask them what they felt. Did they think you did a great job? Of course, if this is a friend, they're probably going to be very kind and be like, yes, it was awesome, and they'll be very supportive, and that's great. We always want a person like that on our side, right? But reflect in yourself, how did it go? Did we have any mistakes? Did we have any problems? Were there hesitations? Did we miss some notes? Because what we miss when we're nervous is going to be completely different than what we get right or what we miss when we are not nervous at all, when we don't have any of those feelings. So learn from that, and then maybe make a few marks, like, okay, these couple notes, these weren't super solid. If you are playing memorized, make a mental note and then go back in your music and say, what are you playing? If you're a late beginner level, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So let me know what you're playing, and maybe I can even talk you from there. But go through the act of actually performing and trying to simulate what the performance is going to be like for a person, if possible. And then if you have time, especially if it didn't go super well, if you have time, spend a couple days practicing again and go back and redo it and say, okay, I'm going to play for the same person. We're going to do the whole same thing. We'll do it over again. I'll sit down, I'll play, and see what's changed and see if you're less nervous, right? Oh, brilliant, Rodrigo. Moonlight Sonata and Chopin's Waltz. So, Rodrigo, are you playing them from memory? That is, by the way, see, this is why I asked, because late beginner can mean so many different things. I've had some people that say late beginner and they are playing from like level 1 and 2 lesson books. And I've had some people say late beginner to me and they're playing big Schubert impromptus and things like that. So it's kind of all over the map. So thanks for sharing that. Those pieces, by the way, Moonlight Sonata, Chopin's Waltz, I would definitely say that you're beyond late beginner. Absolutely. Probably more like, I don't know, if we're going to equate this to like a leveling system, probably level 5, 6, somewhere in there, or grade 5 or 6. And I would say late beginner would be usually like grade 2 or something like that. So Rodrigo says, reading the music when performing makes me even more nervous. You tend to read too much at the music. Okay. I actually understand that a bit. We can get glued to the page and we lose focus on what we're actually supposed to be doing because we're so afraid of our eyes losing contact. So that's another thing you can practice. If you are using music and the music up there actually makes you nervous, practice in the performance for someone else looking up and down, consciously looking up and down and making sure that you don't lose your place as you glance back and forth, because we need to. I mean, if we're playing, I should have the Moonlight Sonata on my iPad, but if we're playing this, especially when we get to the middle section, which I'm just making this up. I know it's something like that. It's a dominant 7 chord. And then there's some diminished chords, those arpeggios that go up and down. Especially those sections. We're going to need to look down, aren't we? So make sure that we can look up and down do that in practice and do it in this practice performance. That's, yeah. So think about who you can play for and simulate the whole activity from beginning to end. And then if you've got enough time, do it multiple times. Do it at least twice, 3 times, something like that. And you'll learn as much about your playing from those little snippets of performance, of like small performance, right, for a friend. You'll learn just as much about what you're working on as you do when you're practicing it by yourself, maybe even more so. So yeah, that would be what, you know, the process I'd go through to help get rid of some of the nerves and stuff that you might be feeling, and help just feel more comfortable doing the whole thing. It's really so that the first time you go out isn't actually the first time you're playing for people. You've been doing it a couple times now, and that's going to be such a huge advantage, especially, you know, compared to if you're playing with other people that haven't thought of that or don't have that kind of opportunity. Not that it's competition, just meaning like the feeling inside, you're going to come away with a much more positive experience after giving yourself those extra opportunities. So, awesome. Let me go back through. So, Haydar, you said it's not going very well. You don't know where to look at the score or the keyboard. So that's kind of the same thing we just talked about. You could try, Haydar, you know, there's a lot in the Moonlight Sonata that we have the same thing for measure after measure, right? It's one measure and it's mostly the same right hand. Let's see. Right? So anytime we don't have those moving notes, feel free to look down at your hands. So anytime it's the same chord over and over again, even when the bass note moves, we can look down. That's great practice, looking up and down. And then if we're really reading the notes, of course, we need to do more exploring with just the fingers. Let's see. What was it? So maybe that bar, that'll be the first bar in the piece where we do more looking at the music alone and less looking at the hands, and we rely on knowing exactly where our fingers are, and we can kind of feel that. You can also practice this by closing your eyes, taking that sense away and using your fingertips to start to feel what fingers are around the group of 2 black keys and what fingers are around the group of 3 black keys, especially when we're working on pieces that we're navigating all of that, right? Where it's not a piece in C major, or like the Chopin Waltz in A minor, where we're navigating mostly white keys. We can't feel those landmarks as well. So when we're in one of those sharper flat keys, we have that extra tactile feedback where we can actually say like, okay, I can feel like at the first measure of Moonlight Sonata, I don't have to look at my hands, and I can feel my second and third fingers are on this group of 2 black keys. Let me see if I can I show you that better? So let's see. I'll do it up an octave so we can see it a little bit better. So I can actually feel with these 2 fingers that I'm sitting right next to this group of black keys. And even the side of my 4th finger, I'm getting that feedback. Yeah? So we can use that kind of feedback to help tell us exactly where our hands are without ever needing to look down. And then we can reach, when we get to this bar, we can reach with our 5th finger because we can feel it right next to the F sharp. We don't even need to look down. We can just plop the 5th finger on top of it. And then keep going. I should really get that music out. But that's, yeah, great question. Great question, Rodrigo and Haydar, to kick us off. Thanks so much. Let's see. Going back a little bit, Louise had a question. I take online piano lessons and I'm an early intermediate. Can you give some pointers on how to overcome stage fright when I try to do videos or recordings? So I guess we kind of covered a little bit of this already. And you have the benefit of you get to do it as many times as you want, right? So here's a thought. We want to kind of, in a sense, forget that we're recording. We want to take that part out of the equation. Just like when we're playing live, we want to take all of the anxiety and insecurity about playing live as much as we can out of the equation by doing it. So just, first of all, Louise, just you trying to do it and send stuff in like that, that's going to go a long way, because just like everything else, the more we practice something, this something is actually making a recording. The more we practice that, the less anxiety we're going to have doing it, because we have more and more experience. Now, in the meantime, what you might be able to do is, let's say you're just probably using a cell phone. Put your cell phone on, get it all set up, ready to go. Even press record, let it start recording. Don't sit down at the piano. Go do something else for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. If it was me, I would go and make myself a cup of coffee. Do something else. Maybe respond to an email or text a friend, something like that. Take your mind off what you're about to do. Come back to the piano where you're going to record. Bring your coffee with you, your beverage, your tea, whatever. Your laptop if you're texting somebody or you're replying to an email. Bring that. Finish up what you're doing in the position that we're going to play in. And then, as if we're just going about our day, and we're just going to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to start, and okay, here we go. Then jump in and start recording, or even play a scale or two, and then start recording your piece. I'm still stuck in C# minor because of Moonlight Sonata. But those would be my suggestions. And then most cell phone, Rodrigo says the battery will die. I hope not. So then just about every phone camera app, or like if I have an iPhone, so if you're in the Photos app, then you can go right into the video without exporting it from your phone, without doing anything crazy in software, and you can trim it down. So let's say you want to send this in, and you don't want the teacher to see like you drinking your coffee and you're doing all this other stuff. All you have to do is trim that down, and you can do it. It's very, very easy, and I'm sure, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are places you can go online for like a quick 3-step, 5-step tutorial that shows you exactly how to do it. Trim it down, you resave the file in your phone. The phone will prompt you to do that. And then you have this recording that is all done, and you've eliminated the stress of saying, okay, I'm going to press record. The phone is all set up. Now I've got to go over here, and I've got to sit down cold. Maybe you have been playing, but it feels like as soon as you press record, right, everything changes. And we sit down and we're cold, and then, we have to play. And then if we mess up or we want to redo it, right, we end up getting up, and then we hit pause or stop. We start over again, and we do the process, and we repeat and we repeat. And then if we continue to do that, one, we start to get really frustrated, which doesn't help music making at all. And two, the more mistakes we make, the more we're going to be afraid to make the mistakes again, right? So the whole idea here is we want to just eliminate the idea that we're recording. And I'll also give you just a little bit of, you can take some solace in this fact that almost every professional musician I know gets nervous on camera and in the recording studio making recordings. I know people that get more nervous to make recordings than they do to play live. I don't understand that. And I'm always of the opinion that, like, okay, if you're recording something, we get as many times as we want to do it, and we don't have to share anything with anybody that's really bad. So, yeah. As much as you can do, especially like we're not making an album, we're not recording an album. We don't have somebody sitting backstage going, okay, take 3. I bar, 10 to 20. Let's do it again. Okay. You can eliminate that feeling as much as possible, right? So that's what I suggest, to try doing that, and that'll help you. It'll just start to feel more and more comfortable, like it's just a part of what you're doing. And being able to just cut that down, trim that video down, and then send only the part that you want, makes it all possible, right? Because like if we did have to edit it in some other program and do X, Y, and Z, then it would be really time consuming, and it might be frustrating on the other side. So that's what I would say, Luis. Great question. And similar to the question I answered from Rodrigo, we're basically trying to make a situation that we don't live in very often as comfortable as we can. So it's the same kind of thing. I'm alive. Hey, hello. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. Have we had any other questions so far? Let's see. Haydar. I'm alive. Well, a last minute question? You can ask a question anytime. Let's see. Oh, have we been going? We've been going for almost a half an hour so far, but I'm alive. Just drop it in the chat. I'll probably get to it next, right after I answer the latest question from Haydar. But yeah, ask anything. Haydar says, can you please upload a video on minor scales? Because I'm feeling very comfortable learning arpeggios after learning some major scales, especially B major. What particular? I'm happy to do that, actually, and I'll make a note about it even. What in particular, Haydar, are you having trouble with minor scales? Is it knowing the notes to play? Is it the fingering? Is it something else? Let me know. Is it the crosses? Is it the technical part of minor scales? Let me know. And I'm going to make a note right now to make a video on minor scales. Let's see. And in the meantime, while you answer, maybe there's something I can help you with today, and I'm alive. If you've got that question, just drop it in the chat. Great. So, yeah, I hope, going back to Rodrigo's comment, I hope your cell phone doesn't die after 10 minutes. That would be horrible. Although it would make for some very short phone calls with other people. Maybe some people would like that. I would. I know I would. So I see we've got 10 people here right now. If you haven't dropped your name or where you are in the chat, go ahead, say hi, and let us know where you're from. And we started today off by talking about our favorite piano that we've ever gotten to play on. So drop that in the chat also if you haven't already. Rodrigo says, if I'm not recording in 4K, it's fun. Yeah, I understand that. I have been doing an incredible amount of recording video, and I use my phone for all of my top-down camera stuff. The phone's never plugged in because it's so far away from everything. And I actually ran out of space. I have 256 gigs on my phone, and I ran out of space for video because I've done so much in the last week. So that's another thing, yeah. So Haydar says, I'm just not feeling them the way I am about major ones. For example, I learned C-sharp minor just because Moonlight Sonata is in this scale. That's great. In fact, I always, with my own personal students, we always talk about learning the scales that correspond with the pieces that we're playing. So learning C-sharp minor just to play Moonlight Sonata is great. Learning also, of course, the C-sharp minor arpeggios, equally important. Yeah, just the regular arpeggio. That would be great, and doing that with both hands. Of course, we can always add more things to that. So, Haydar, are you playing? There are 3 types of minor scales that we have. We've got natural minor. I'll just use C sharp as our example here. Natural minor, which follows exactly the key signature, which has a lowered 7th tone. It sounds lowered, but it's our natural minor scale, right? We also have harmonic minor, that is the same scale but with a raised 7th scale degree. That one. Called harmonic minor because when we play our dominant harmony, our G sharp harmony, we have a C natural, or as a B sharp in this case, and that resolves to C sharp. Yeah. And then there's also melodic minor, which raises the 6th and 7th pitch, going up, and lowers them coming down. Lowers them back to natural minor coming down. So, Haydar, are you playing natural minor? The most common ones are to play natural minor or harmonic minor. Let me know which ones you're playing. Let's just take C sharp in particular. Let me come back to that. And I'm going to answer. I've gotten a couple other questions, and so I'm going to come back to you, Haydar, as soon as I hear from you. I'm Alive said there's an E6 chord, which is E, G. Oh, I'm assuming H is... What note is H? Is that a typo? Is it B? Okay. Is H B in Europe? Because... Okay, in the Russian school. Thanks, Haydar. I've seen that very, very... Yes, Rodrigo, he's probably... they're probably in Germany as well. I've seen that in some Bach, but that was a long time ago, the last time I've... Oh, hey, Polish. We're like cousins. Awesome. Okay, so it is B. C, E6. Don't understand how it works because C sharp is not in the E minor scale, and E major scale also. Well, actually, C sharp is in the E major scale. There's C sharp. So an E6, yes, E major 6, add 6, would be C sharp. If we're in E minor, it's C natural. So if we were playing an E minor 6, it would be the C natural, not the C sharp. If we played C sharp with the E chord, an E minor chord on the bottom, C sharp on top, we actually make a diminished chord in inversion. So that's no longer an E minor 6. I wouldn't even call it an E minor augmented 6. So yes, but in E major, we have first scale degree, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and C sharp is in there. The other thing is, let's see, I'm Alive. Do you play a lot of contemporary music? Are you playing like pop music or other contemporary classical stuff where we're reading some chord symbols? Or are you reading like guitar chord symbols? Because I bring that up because in typical classical music theory, we don't talk about 6. We talk about 6 would be the 13th. So if we build, let me go back to C major so that this is just a little simpler to talk about. If we build a C major triad and then put the 6th on top, which is be A, right? All chords are built stacking thirds on top of each other. So our basic triad is a third, but we need to find out how many more thirds do we need to stack to get to A. So if we are in C, we're going to go C, E, G, B, D, F, and then we get to A. And if we count the interval, right from bottom, we have our 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. So by the time we get to A, it's actually a 13th away from C. And so that's more typically how we see classical music presented, where if we have a C 13, add 13, that's when we would add the A. And typically if we're playing stuff that's, I guess if it's a little bit simplified versions, or if you're reading guitar chords or it's like a jazz sheet, sometimes it'll say 13 and sometimes it'll say 6, and it depends on who wrote it. But 6 is, I know exactly what you're talking about. But to understand, I would actually understand 6. I would understand it more as 13 than as 6. Simply because all classical harmony is built, again, by stacking thirds. Some jazz harmony is built that way, and some jazz harmony is built by stacking fourths. So like, sometimes we can stack fourths and get really nice jazz chords. but most of the time stacking thirds. So how many thirds do we need to stack to find the note? It's the same reason we talk about B being a 7. D would be the 9. Even if we play the D in the middle of the chord, like that, it's still an add 9. And I think that is one in particular that you see a lot more of it called add 9 than add 2. Although sometimes 2 still does happen. Does that help answer your question? I'm alive. Hey, Diogo, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to come back to you in just a second because I think I want to hit Haydar's question and try to finish that up. And then I will jump back into what you asked. But thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Haydar says you're doing more harmonic minor, C sharp minor. Great. For everybody listening, I always prefer doing harmonic minor scales, not natural minor. And the reason is that natural minor and major are the same group of notes. And we're missing the really important leading tone. That maybe is a little bit a complicated theory, depending on what level you're at. But natural minor scales, so let's see, the relative major of C sharp would be E. If we play C sharp natural minor, it's exactly the same as starting on C sharp in an E major scale. There's no difference. Now, maybe that can help you actually if we're playing natural minor, but I usually suggest people don't do that because if we know the major scale, we're going to know it's natural minor relatively well. At least the way it feels in the fingers to play it, right? If we can play E major, we can definitely play C sharp natural minor. The fingering is messed up, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. The second part, okay, going back to harmonic. Harmonic is great because most often in classical music, in all music, most music, we're going to have that raised seventh tone to give us a dominant function when we need it. Yeah? So there it is. In the middle of our G sharp chord is our B sharp and C sharp harmonic minor, or C sharp minor, right? And if you look at the sheet music, you'll see that B needs the accidental because it's not a part of the key. So if we practice harmonic minor, we're making that note a part of our normal minor key language, which I think is really important. And that leading tone is already present in all the major keys, so we don't have to change those for any reason. So I think, Haydar, we need to get comfortable with the fingering that is minor scales, and you kind of jumped into a scale that isn't the most straightforward if we're talking about C sharp minor. So go back, maybe try C minor to start with. Let's try this one. And we're going to look for places. So C minor is actually going to follow the same fingering that you do for major keys. So in the right hand, it's 1, 2, 3, and 1 crosses. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just the same fingering as C major. The only difference is going to be the notes. And just like I talk about in the B major video that I know that you've watched, we have a couple landmarks where we know where our thumb moves. So from E flat to F, we go up to a black key and the thumb crosses after that. And then we have 2 black keys, A flat. Well, if we play harmonic minor, it'll be B. And then we cross back to thumb. But it's going to feel similar to all of the major keys that you probably already know because we have the same fingering pattern. So start with scales like that. And then if we need to jump into something that's got a different fingering like C sharp, we want to try to identify those patterns again. So where does the thumb cross and why does it cross there? In C sharp, we start in the right hand with the second finger. And we play second finger, third finger, and then we cross to thumb. So we can see that the thumb happens after the group of black keys, right? Because most of the time, say 95 to 99% of the time, we don't want to put a thumb on a black key, if possible. So the thumb plays after the group of black keys is over. Now let's see. Once again, going up from there, We go into our next set of black keys. We finish G sharp, which is our last sharp in C sharp minor, and the thumb plays again. Right? If you want to make, I like starting the scale with 2 because it makes the initial cross more easier to accomplish. If you want every octave to feel similar to, so we've got the same fingering, whether we're going up 2 octaves, 3 octaves, or whatever, then you'll have to start C sharp on 3 and play 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. When we get back to 3 on C sharp, then we've got the same finger we used at the bottom of the scale. It does make starting the scale a little bit trickier. And so use whichever one is going to be more helpful for you. If you're playing 2 octave scales and they're tricky, maybe start with 3 on the bottom so that the finger always lines up. C sharp's always with 3. And same thing, when we're coming down, make those, think about those landmark notes. Where does the finger cross? And if we can kind of envision why does it cross there? Why do we cross to 3? Because we can't put a thumb on a black key. So we cross to 3 on G sharp for that reason. So let's start with that first, and then I'll think a bit more about ways we can tackle minor scales, and I'll see what kind of video I can put together. Because if you have questions, then there are probably a lot of people that have questions, right? So thanks for that. I hope that is a little bit of a help in the meantime, and yeah, we'll move on from there. Thanks for the question, Hadar. Let me go back to Diogo. Thank you. You said, I love your content. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. I'm having trouble, he says, I'm having trouble developing a good control of interior voices accompaniment with a melody on the outside of the hand. Came up with Beethoven D major number 15. Do you have any hints or exercises that can help? So here's another thing I need to do for next time. I need to keep all the Beethoven sonatas on my iPad also. Inner voices. So is it like an Alberti kind of figure? My Beethoven scores are really close by, but I don't want to jump off camera. Let's see. I'm going to jump off camera. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back in like 10 seconds. Maybe that was longer than 10 seconds. Okay, let me pull up Beethoven number 12. Well, that was lucky. Just to clarify, Diogo, I think we're talking about Opus 26. All right. Let's see what we got here. And well, let's see. This is not in Sonata. Oh, number 15, not number 12. You said 15. Got the number wrong. I was going to say this isn't in D major. Okay, this is going to help make your question have a lot more sense. All right. So I'm going to just look at the first movement, unless you come back and you have some specific measures in mind. So control of interior voices that are accompaniment while bringing out the melody. See, I've never played this one. So if we're just talking about, let's say, the first couple lines of this sonata, and you're saying we want to bring out, you know that we want to bring out the top note, right? It's piano. But we want to subdue, which is great, the lower voices that are in the right hand. So we want a chord that sounds like, and not a chord that sounds like that, right? Bringing out the A. I would suggest going back, let's start with chords in D major. So take just a simple D major triad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to bring out each one of the voices. So we've got 3 fingers that are playing, the first finger, the third finger, the fifth finger, right? Now, experiment with, and I'm going to tell you in a second how I do it, but experiment with how we bring out different notes that are a part of that chord simultaneously, right? So we can play with the thumb, we can play mostly with the thumb, right? So I'm still playing all 3 notes. We can play mostly with the middle, the third finger, like that. We can play mostly with the fifth finger. So you can hear that even though I'm playing all 3 notes, I'm bringing out one, right, instead of all 3 together equally. So the first way we could start to experiment with this is actually by breaking the chord into 2 chunks. So let's say the note that we want to emphasize, we're going to play first, and then we're going to play the rest of the chord second. So if we want to specifically work on the fifth finger, that's usually the most important one, I'm going to break the chord and play 5, and then the rest of the chord on the bottom, like that. And then the faster we can get back to the whole chord, and then it turns into playing the chord in a whole chunk, right? Now, I would say practice this practice is broken with plenty of time for a while, because we really want to get used to emphasizing 5. Now, the other thing, if we pay attention to what happens with the hand when we want to emphasize 5, a weaker finger, right? The finger that's so often responsible for melody, right? A finger that we always need to bring out of the texture, but it's always the weakest one, all right? Now, what happens when we just play 5? If we're going to play 5 with a nice accent, I don't know how much of this you can actually see on camera, but there is a little bit of rotation in my wrist from here, and I'm exaggerating it now so you can see. So I'm not only activating the finger itself from the big knuckle down, but I'm also rotating into it. And let me see, maybe I can show you this way as well. So when we play these chords, just our practice chords, like this D major right now, we're going to rotate into the top note and then come back and play the rest of the chord. And that's going to spill into, when we want to voice notes in the chord, we are going to rotate the hand toward that voice that we want to bring out, whether that's the top voice or the middle voice or the lower voice. So if I play the chord all at one time, if I rotate toward 5, right? If I want to play 1, so I'm holding my hand in this position. If I want to play my thumb more loudly, look at the difference in hand position. If I want to play 5 more loudly, so there's a pretty significant amount of rotation. So I'm basically changing the point of balance in my hand toward the note that I want to emphasize, or the voice that I want to bring out. The most difficult notes to bring out are always going to be the ones that are in the middle of a chord. So if you want great practice at feeling this, after you get through maybe, or even while you're breaking the chord up, we can go through and play the lowest pitch. Feel that rotation into it. and then play the middle pitch, and then play the upper pitch. And then eventually you can practice this just by playing the triad as a whole. Lowest note, middle note, upper note. Okay? And then, if you're already playing this, I can give you an even more advanced tip or piece of advice. Expand that to playing the same type of motion in dominant 7 chords. That's going to spread the hand out even further, and it's going to make voicing all of the notes that much more complicated. So not only do we have 4, but now we have 2 inner notes that are going to be really difficult to voice up or above the rest of the texture. So every time we have a dominant 7, oh, that 4th finger is difficult. And you can try doing that again, starting by, whoops, by doing that first, breaking the chord up. So Diogo, I hope you're still here. Let me know. I think that's going to be a big help. Practice those kinds of triads, and even take chord shapes that are in the sonata, like here. So we can take this chord shape. It's a D7 right at the top. It's just in 3 notes. And we can practice that same thing, bringing that out separately. That's the next bar. Yeah. So hopefully, it seems like that's helpful to some other people that are here too. Rodrigo, awesome. And yeah, so Diogo, let me know if you're still here. I hope you are. I hope I didn't lose you in the meantime. Great. That was a really awesome question. Really cool. And I'm glad I pulled out my sonata books. Awesome. Let's go back in. We'll dive in here. So let's see. And Luis, yes, it says, it drives me crazy to get to the end of a piece and then vomit in the last few bars. I totally understand. That drives me crazy too. Richard says, if one has no interest in playing jazz, can we avoid learning modal scales? Oh, thanks, Jose. Appreciate that. So can we avoid learning mode scales? I would say yes. As a classical player myself, I have never played anything but major and the 3 minor scales. And today I only practice major and harmonic minor, even though I learned natural and melodic, sure. As a composer, I use more of the other modes, but I don't write jazz and I don't play jazz. So my exploration of all of the modes is still limited to a handful that are my favorites. So I don't know of any classical program, any study program at any level that asks pianists to play scales in more modes than just Aeolian and Ionian, right? Minor and major. So my quick answer is yes, you can avoid learning about mode scales. You can at least avoid learning about them at the keyboard, unless you want to write music, arrange music, or even pop music. More and more pop music is starting to use like little fragments of notes that come from another mode. But even in those cases, it's not really all that important. So there's my quick answer. And let's see, where were you? Richard, thanks for joining us today. It's good to see you. JG says, hey, JG, good to see you. What is your opinion on symmetrical inversion? Been using it for the revolutionary etude tuplets in Chopin nocturnes and scales. So far, it's been very effective. Oh, and you're in wave optics class right now. Cool. Symmetrical inversion. I don't know if that's a term I've ever even heard before, to be honest, JG. So let me Google it really quick, and we'll see what it says. And if it's something I've heard of just with a different name, then I can definitely answer your question. Well, I'm finding some videos. I'll have to watch Graham Fitch's video because he's got one on this. Based on just what the words mean, symmetrical inversion. let me, JG, let me type back. Okay, let me go back to JG in a second. We'll see what he says. Seth, hey, Seth, thanks for joining us today. Seth asks, do you need your fingers to be more curved than your natural hand position when playing scalar passages? Great question. So Seth, have you seen my video on finding that natural hand position? Because that'd be a great one to check out. It's in my beginner section on, it's maybe even called Finding Your Ideal Hand Shape. So one of the things that like Taubman teaches, right, we shake things out, find that natural place, come up to the piano and let it rest. So your question is, do we need more curve when playing scalar passages? The only time we need more curve is if we need to provide additional structure for some reason. We could have a lot of reasons that we want that, but let's say if it's just a scale, or a scalar passage, no, we're not going to use any more curve. C major or some of the white key major scales, yeah, maybe, because the hands aren't using the black keys at all, we're going to have a little bit more curve so that we're not doing too much in and out movement, because that's going to take away and make the scale bumpy, right? So there might be a little bit more curve there, but anytime we're playing a scale that involves any kind of stretch up toward, starting with G, and then D, of course, E, A, we don't need any additional curve in the fingers. The time that we might want a little bit extra, let's say we're playing something that's really, really difficult to control. So maybe it needs to be fast and extremely soft, or maybe it just needs to be extremely soft, and it's a scalar passage, let's say. And I'll even pick B major. So I might allow my hand to rest, or to be positioned, my wrist to be positioned further into the keyboard, because the little bit more structure I can give by having a little bit more curve in the shape is going to help me really make sure that I don't miss a note and I don't lose it, right? Let's see if I can, like that. So I can play very softly and with a lot of control. But it's really a minute change from the natural hand shape. So we don't ever want to, even if we're playing, so here's that second half of the B major scale, right? That hand position. If I'm playing it fast, I'm probably not going to curve more. If I'm playing it slowly and I need to play it softly, maybe a little bit. But the difference between the extra curve, which I'm showing you now, and let's say natural hand shape, would be that. So it's about that much difference. And that's it. Now the byproduct of this is also going to be that we're going to end up having a brighter tone, because the more we play with the tips of the fingers, usually the more the firmer the attack is and the brighter the tone is going to be coming out of the instrument. So if the goal is still to play softly with a warm tone, with all of that control, we're not going to want to add structure by increasing curve. We're going to want to add structure by continuing to develop what it feels like to hold that structure while we're still a little bit more spread out in our natural hand shape. So I can still play very softly out here. With no extra curve, right? So that's the eventual goal, so that we can have full choice about what we're doing. Do we want the warmer tone that we get by playing with flatter fingers, not flat fingers, but less curved fingers? Do we want a brighter tone? That's one of the issues that I have with, there are a lot of pianists online that teach playing with like this really kind of severe curved shape. And it does make some of the crosses with the thumb and crossovers maybe a little bit easier. But if you look at most concert pianists, they're always changing hand shapes, right? They're always moving in and out of more curve and less curve and more curve and less curve. But the point, like their average point of curve, always tends to be more toward the flat side, unless they have massive hands. I'm going to come back to JG because I saw he brought up Marc-Andre Omlin. Marc-Andre has enormous hands. And if you watch him play, he usually plays with quite a bit of curve in the fingers. And that's actually because if he didn't, he'd be running into the fallboard all the time while he plays stuff. So his hands are just so big that he doesn't really have a choice about playing with a little bit less. That's what works for him. He has to. He's made it work extremely well, obviously. He's a fantastic, fantastic pianist. But if you watch somebody like Valentina Lisitsa or Yuja Wang play, they're always tending to be more toward the flatter side of things. And maybe some of that has to do with the fact that their hands are on the smaller side, and so in order to stretch to reach things, we can't have as much curve. But also, they don't have any trouble producing great tone and playing night after night after night with no injuries, right? So I hope that answers your question. I went off on a little tangent there at the end. But I would say most often no, unless we're working in particular on building some more of this foundational structure in the bridge of the hand. We don't need to add more curve. The only other occasion that I can think of where I might add more curve is if I'm playing a piano, and this would be like in a performance setting. I get to a piano that I've never played before and I'm not used to it, and I show up to get a 10-minute warm-up, and it's extremely bright, or it's very light and it's very difficult to control. Then I might err on the side of playing with more curve in the fingers so that I simply can control it. Thanks, Seth. That was a great question, and I appreciate you watching the other videos on the channel and bringing another question in from them. That's really cool. Thank you. I hope that was helpful. Let me know. Yeah, Jose says playing on the pads of the fingers. That's always what we really want to do, is play on the pads, the softer part of our fingers, not on the tips. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Seth. Let me go back to JG before I hit Rodrigo's question. So JG says it's when we're talking again about symmetrical inversion, right? Symmetrical inversion is when you take a passage and find its partner because the piano is symmetrical around D and A flat. So so if you play in contrary motion, the fingering's the same sequence of white and black keys. And it's strongly recommended by Marc-Andre Omlin and a couple other people. So if you use the same intervals, the finger sequence is the same in contrary motion. So JG, I would say your first question was, what is your opinion on it? Okay, great. Honestly, I haven't heard of it, so I have never used that in my own practice. I'm trying to think about some of the most difficult passages I've played. I still don't think I would use it myself. If it works for you, that's awesome, and that's great. I prefer practicing that doesn't add notes to what I'm trying to play. Let me expand on that a little bit. So sometimes, maybe this is similar to what Nari Soul does on her channel, where she builds exercises out of little passages that are in different pieces of music and says that this is going to help you play this piece of music. I haven't ever done that because it turns into another exercise. And I feel like there are enough exercises out there. And if I'm going to play scales and arpeggios and other things, I'm probably not going to turn, if it's an etude that I'm working on, like you mentioned, the revolutionary etude, I'm not going to create an exercise out of the etude myself because the etude is already an exercise. So you're saying it works for you, and that's great. Then keep doing it. Yeah. If you were coming into lessons with me and you played something and you said it worked, I would absolutely say continue doing it. That's not going to change my mind probably about how I practice, but definitely if it works for you, there's nothing wrong with it. I tend to, when I practice, so I want to avoid changing the music, and I want to avoid building muscle memory for me that is outside of the piece that I'm working on. So if I'm working on the revolutionary etude, I want to work on, instead of creating these symmetrical inversions, I will create small chunks to practice. And I'll practice those in groupings, in rhythmic groupings, and in small, maybe 4-note, 4/16, 8/16. So I would rather practice like that and break things up into small groups that keep the motion going in the right direction rather than reversing. Because in my mind, if I reverse direction in the middle of a phrase that's going to be extremely difficult to play, to perform at the final tempo, I'm going to end up practicing in muscle movement that's contrary to the end goal. So that would be my reason to not do it. But I can see validity in doing it because we're continuing to, we're recognizing the shape. No, I'm not, no, I'm not a fan of Courteau's edition. No. There are many editions that Courteau edited that I'm not a fan of. So yeah, but I can see the validity in creating shapes like that because we're learning to see the pattern in a different way, and we're continuing to exercise the fingers in this particular way. So I guess that's my question. You asked for my opinion. So there you go, JG. And that might be something, if you do want to go get a teacher, that would definitely be something to bring up because I know I'm a fairly open-minded teacher where I am okay with things that other teachers definitely wouldn't be. And that would be a great thing that might be a little polarizing for different teachers. So if somebody disagrees with it, you're going to want to know that right away, and you're going to want to know their reasons and if they will allow it or not allow it in lessons. And that'll be a huge indicator for you because it works for you. You're going to want to keep doing it, definitely. So you're going to want a teacher that's okay with that. Yeah. And I would definitely bet that like 50% of teachers probably wouldn't be. So yeah, and your reason, like you just said, because it improved things more than anything else and it didn't cause pain, those are massive reasons to keep doing it. So keep going, for sure. Let's go back. So let's see, Rodrigo. Rodrigo had a question. Unless, I'm just reading through the comments one more time. Unless there's another question after Rodrigo's, we'll call this the last one of the day. Rodrigo asks, do you have any particular tips on improving rhythms like 2 against 3, meaning 2 notes in the left hand and a triplet in the right? I have a lot of issues with these types of rhythms. Yes, I have a tip. In fact, I taught this very recently to a student. Okay, I hope this is going to come through because I'm going to actually tap things on my lap first before we go to the keyboard. So you say the two notes is in the left hand and the triplet is in the right. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to feel the compound or the collective rhythm that we're building. So if we put all of it together, it's going to sound something like this. Let me play it. So I'm just playing the same pitch, or if I play one pitch, let me see if I can do it. That's a very, very close approximation to what 2 against 3 feels like to play. It's not perfect, but it's going to get us a long way toward actually being able to play 2 against 3 and build that coordination. So what we want to do is start with, we're going to start with both hands together, and I'm tapping on the lap. So find the point where the hands come together, which is on the very first beat of 2 against 3. We'll start with this, and then play your 3, which is in the right hand, you said. Right? And now we're going to add to that this feeling of transitioning the rhythm between the right hand and the left hand. So together, right, together, right, together, right, together, right, together, right, together, right, right. If we keep it in that rhythm, we get 3 in the right hand against 2 in the left hand. Now, there is a tiny shift that we can do to really play an accurate 2 in the left, where it's not like altered by a fraction of a beat. But let that come much later. Build this kind of coordination first, and then flip it around, because you're just as often going to need to play 3 in the left against 2 in the right. So be able to do that both in your lap, and then I like to pick an octave at the piano. And continue to play it there, so we just feel the keys going down and we can feel the mechanism that we're used to, and then start to let that translate into whatever piece it is that you're working on, however the division is. So here's 3 in the left, and if we switch it around, let's see, there it is. Okay, that would be the absolute way that I would go addressing 2 against 3. And learning how to do it more easily, right? So thanks for that question, Rodrigo. And I hope that helps. Let's see. Jose said Edna, and he's talking about Edna Golansky, the current master of the Taubman technique. She would say the fingers don't press, pull, push. What you feel is a tap. So specifically in finger passages. I would say yes. It depends on what level of performance we're talking about, but 99% of the time I would agree. And so if we're talking about building a really great technique, absolutely. And if we're talking about maintaining healthy technique, absolutely. We don't press, because pressing, nothing happens to the instrument differently if we press or if we tap, right? Because pressing indicates that we're continuing pressure, right? Pressing something is like pressing a button. Playing the piano is not like pressing buttons. And it's not like, let's see, the other word you used was push. Push and press are very similar words, right? Push is even, I think, more aggressive. So if we're pushing, then we're continuing to apply force to the keyboard after we're done. Even if we can let go of that, we're applying too much force to the bottom of the key, to the key bed. That doesn't affect anything in the piano. It doesn't change the tone at all. And pulling, that one I've never heard before as a bad thing. But I can see if we're kind of, our fingers are stuck in the key and we're feeling a pull toward our body, that's very bad. That might be the worst one of all, because I can actually feel the tendons underneath my palm pulling, and they're very tense. Yeah. So I would definitely disagree with those. What we feel is a tap instead. I like that idea of a tap. I haven't used that one myself. I like thinking of like spark in the fingers, or I think we've talked in the comments about feeling alive, like the fingers have life in them, like there's energy. So I like those things. Now, the reason I gave a little caveat to the beginning of that was because if we're talking about making different types of tone color, we're going to start to use the word pull and a little bit of press because, for example, let me see if I've got this. I'm looking for some Debussy. Oh. Let's go to, okay, here we go. Eight. So I've pulled up Debussy's Sunken Cathedral Prelude. So this is the first thing I think of because a lot of Debussy involves like pulling the sound out of the piano in a sense, or it's kind of like feathering the sound because we want this very gentle tone. And what I am actually doing is pulling the keys toward me to play this. So I'm attacking them with a motion that's diagonal like this. The thing that I'm not doing, that would be easy to confuse, is pulling like this with the fingers in. I'm allowing this diagonal motion to happen more from the elbow, like the whole arm working together from the shoulder down. So I'm not doing this kind of motion with the fingers, pulling in. The fingers are staying in a healthy shape, but the rest of the hand is pulling. If that makes sense. And maybe I can use a better word than pull so that we don't have that kind of confusion with this and this motion. Right? But that's the first thing that comes to mind. Pieces like this that involve a lot of chord planing, or anytime we want that very, very delicate and wispy like sound. Now that wouldn't be something that we would necessarily talk about while we're working on building technique. And you said finger passages, so I guess this doesn't even apply. This isn't a finger passage. So yeah, I agree with all of that. 100%. I'll have to think about using the word tap. Oh, okay, so Jose, you say Rosina Levine called that a come to me gesture. Kind of. Yeah, I like that. That's cool. I like that analogy. The one that I've probably used most often is like we're coaxing the sound out of the piano instead of like telling the piano what to do, which is when we use more force and things like that. We're saying, okay, now we're asking the piano to do something like, yeah. Caressing the keys, says Miscellaneous. Yeah, that's kind of a neat idea. But caressing can go in a lot of different directions. But yeah, I like that too. Yeah, great ideas. Awesome. Okay. Well, this has been a lot of fun. This has been a great live stream. And thanks to everybody for joining me. And let's see, JG, I think you said... JG is going to send another video for next time. So if anybody has videos you want to send in for the next stream or in a couple weeks where you'd like some feedback on a piece that you're working on, send them over to me. Just upload your video to Google Drive or Dropbox. Email me a link to it, and I'll download it and have it ready, and we'll play it for everybody and talk about it from there. Thanks to everybody for sticking around. Hadar, Jose, Miscellaneous, JG, Richard, Rodrigo, great to see you today. I hope you'll join us again. And yeah, great session. Oh, let me know also. I'm planning on doing, so there's still 12 of you here. Okay. I'm planning on doing more masterclasses of specific pieces. And I've got a couple that I have ideas that I want to work on, like Debussy's Reverie, Debussy's Clair de Lune. I got a request to do Chopin's First Ballade, which that's going to take a little bit of time to prepare because it's quite a large piece, but that's coming. And also, I'm going to do Chopin's Nocturne, Opus 27, number 1. Let me know, do you have other pieces that you want talked about in like a masterclass type setting, like the Chopin Waltz from a couple weeks ago? Let me know about that. And if you haven't seen the Chopin Waltz, go back and check it out. Reverie, Hadar says Reverie is my pick. Awesome. I think that's a really great piece because it's so beautiful and it's not terribly difficult. So awesome. Feel free, drop it here. Hey, thanks, Baron. Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you. So until next time, we do these every other Wednesday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time in Colorado. So check what time that is in your time zone. And I always like to end things by saying, practice smarter. One of these times, I'm going to say practice harder, not smarter. And that's so anyway, practice smarter, not harder. And hope to see you again soon on the channel and in the comments. Thanks again for joining me.